Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. I'm Sarah Rosette.
And I'm Jamie Albright. And this week on the show, we have
Jamie Davis.
Yes, we do. He's a repeat guest, and it was great.
Yes, we caught up with him and heard all about, he's doing a Kickstarter that's coming up. This is his second one. So there's lots of Kickstarter tips, but we also talked about lots of other things like best and worst advice he's been given. And just kind of it was a really good interview, and he's been doing this a long time. So he had some really good insights.
Oh, really good insights. And I think we could do a whole show on best and worst.
Yes.
In fact, you could probably create a whole podcast, which is not what we did. But
just a little bit. Yeah. So that's coming up soon. And, so we have some supporters this week.
Yeah, we do. And yesterday we did our supporter QA, and we had all of the people on there were new authors. And I thought that was so interesting. Yeah. And we did it with Claire Taylor, and it was great. I mean, there was some really great nuggets of information that were shared. And we appreciate Claire, and we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, I had a blast, and it's gone out on the feed. So if you're a supporter, you should be able to have that it should be available to you in your own private RSS feed. And if you don't have that, just email support@buzzsprout.com and they can help you get connected up with that. Okay, we have a couple of new supporters this week. We're so excited to welcome Lisa Roberts, who has the book stack emoji, and Garrity with what is that?
The Scale of Justice.
Scales of Justice.
Yes. Yeah. And then we have Laura Durham, and she has the rocket ship, and Jillian has the leaf, like the
maple
looking leaf, and Allison Ching has the heart. And we just appreciate you guys so much.
Yeah. So shout out to Laura Durham. She's been on the podcast as a guest before. So it's so cool to see all these names, and we're just so thankful to have supporters, and your support covers our time. And starting this month, we have some industry supporters coming on, and June is going to be Vellum. So welcome to our industry supporter, Vellum. And the industry supporters help pay for transcription, which is a new thing that we're going to be working on. And it also helps cover the production cost as well.
Yes, it does. So thank you, Vellum. And we'll talk more about them in just a little bit. But what's been going on with you?
Let's see. So I'm getting ready to go out of town. June's going to be really busy for both of us, I think. So we're recording some of these episodes earlier, but I've been sorting clothes and packing and trying to coordinate travel stuff. And I decided I had another couple of days left on I signed up for Book Vault, their highest tier, so that you can upload as much as you want on Book Vault. There's you pay the monthly fee, and then you can upload as many things as you want. If you're on the lower tier, you pay each time you upload a book. So since I had a little bit of extra time, I was like, you know what? It makes sense to go ahead and upload the rest of my print books, like my nonfiction. And to get the store going, I went and looked at the print books that I sell the most are in my two series, my historical and the English Village series. And I was like, I'll just do those. But then after I kind of got it going, I was like, since I have it, I should go ahead and upload the rest. So I've been doing that, doing the images, and I kind of have a little system down, which works pretty well.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that, and I've got a whole bunch of things off to moving little projects forward, because I want to do a Kickstarter at the end of the summer. So I'm getting some artwork done for that, getting some just different things that need to be done to be in place. And that's kind of what I've been doing, and travel stuff. So that is about it for me. What about you?
Well, I mentioned last week that I was going on a writer's retreat, and I did that this past week. And it was with, we went just to the beach here in Texas, and I went with Eric Kelly, LJ Evans, Lucy Score, and Maria Lewis. And it was so fun and so great. We actually locked ourselves out of the house the first day for 2 hours, and it's a private home. It's not a rental. And on where we were at, there were no locksmiths. Like they would had to come over from Galveston, and nobody would do that. And so we had to call the police. So that was fun. And we finally got in. We were trying to pick the lock, which it looks a lot easier on TV than it actually is. We were watching YouTube channels and stuff. So none of us are fit for a life of crime, that's for sure. But interestingly
that's
enough,
awesome.
When the first police officer got there, he was a middle-aged guy, middle-aged guy, looked like, he doesn't work out a lot. Let's just put it that way. Not a bit, he's a nice guy, but,
he's not going to be on like the romance cover.
He's not going to be on one of our covers.
He wasn't like the typical hot cop that shows up in the mystery detective stories. Okay.
Correct. But when he showed up, Lucy said, interestingly enough, we're all romance writers. And the first thing he said was, well, I'm married. So I'm not sure
what he thought.
Romance writers did, but anyway, then he said
that's
his
funny.
partner, who did show up later, was the one we needed to talk to. And we're like, we're not going to talk to him about anything.
We just want the door unlocked, right?
We just want to get in. And mosquitoes are eating us. But that was fun. And we did yoga on the beach 3 nights. And we had somebody come and teach us or lead us. And it was just great. And, we did some writing and did some planning and did some brainstorming and did some admin. And then the rest of the time we really just talked and laughed. And, I cried a couple of times because it was the last time I was at the beach house. I was there with my mom and sisters, and where we were doing yogas, where we had been on the beach. And I mean,
how could you not be emotional, Yeah.
So it was good though. And so and the funny thing is, like, couple of people said to us privately, but we all laughed about it. We were a weird group of people. Like, you wouldn't normally put
not the typical group. Yeah.
And, but we happened to be in a Facebook group, and during pandemic, we started, we were like in this Facebook group, we were like, hey, y'all want to get on a Zoom call? So the first time a lot of people got on, but then it ended up just really being the 5 of us plus one other woman who lives in England who couldn't come to the beach. And we've continued that little messenger group, and we talk pretty much every day. And so that's how that group started. And we were just like last year, we were like, we should get together. We should do a retreat. But it's taken us a while, to get together. But if you have a group like that and you can do it, you should do it. It is, I can't tell you how good it is for the soul. It was really great. And so anyway,
that's awesome.
And, yeah.
I'm glad it was a good time and a good trip. And you have fodder for books. I'm sure that calling the police and not being able to get into a rental or vacation home will be showing up in lots of people's books now.
Oh my gosh, it was hilarious. It was so funny. And so it turns out, after Lucy posted about it, that people in her group were saying again. And I was like, wait a minute, Lucy. Like, I think you've withheld some important information from us. Have you locked yourself out of another house? And it was just so funny. That's awesome. The best time.
Awesome.
So,
awesome.
Anyway,
we have a couple of things to talk about. We wanted to mention, coming up when this goes out in June, we are both going to be at InkersCon.
Yes.
And we want to have lunch with anybody who is a podcast listener and is going to be there. We want to take you to lunch.
We'll take you to lunch. Yeah. It's on us.
Yeah. So on Friday, the 9th, that's when we're planning it. And it's going to be in the app, if you have the app, and it'll be in the Facebook group. So let us know if you want to come and join us. We'd love to meet you. We did this last year. We did breakfast, and it was so much fun to meet everybody and talk and share. It was great. And we were trying to do it earlier this year so people can meet each other and kind of know and make connections for the rest of the conference, because that always helps. So we have that. about moving the day the podcast is released because we want to add in transcripts and we need we need a little extra time to be able to do that. So don't be shocked if the podcast shows up on Wednesday instead of Tuesday. We think that we're going to have to move to Wednesday.
Yeah.
So just wanted to give everybody a heads up.
Right.
We haven't forgotten about you. No, it's just going to be Wednesdays instead of Tuesdays.
Right. Well, let's talk about Vellum real quick, because I'm going to tell you right now, Vellum is a life changer if you're an author.
It is. So it's, they're our sponsor for this episode, our industry sponsor, and they're software for Mac, and it lets you create ebook and print versions of your book that you can upload to vendors. And so I think I was going to say, why don't we just talk about why we like Vellum? Because I mean, I feel like I use it so much.
I do.
And it is so easy to use that I don't even think about it. I just get in there and do my thing, and then it's done. And I think so many authors use it, but we don't really talk about it that much because it's so easy and it just does what it's supposed to.
And for so many of us, it's just part of our daily life. I mean, it's just what we do. It is for Mac. I think they had a workaround in the cloud, but I don't know. I'm not going to push that because I don't know anything about that. But if you're a Mac user, then it's definitely something you should look into. For me, now there was a learning curve. Everybody was like, it's so easy. It's so easy. And I got on and I was like, okay, wait a minute. But there was a small learning curve. But once you get it, it is so easy. It is just the easiest thing. And you can do so many things. If you're making box sets, you can just put it all in. It's just so seamless. And the reason I love it is because changing back matter in the back of the book is so easy. And I don't have to send out for somebody else to do it and wait for them to get back and then to charge me. And you know, this is a one-time fee. And
because I did that when my first indie book released. I hired somebody to format it for me, and it looked beautiful and I loved it. And then of course I found a typo or 5 or 10, and then I had to go back to them and wait for it to be fixed. And so, and then when Vellum came out, I was like, oh, I can do this myself. And it just makes it so easy. So if I need to make a little change, I can update covers. And they have it where you can make the back matter link specific to each vendor. It's really easy. You can, so that way, because, certain vendors don't like you to have links to other venders in the back of their book. So instead of having to do all that yourself, it does it all for you.
If you're wide, this is awesome.
Set time saver. So
you can, I think you used it to create your special editions for your Kickstarter, right? And you can do large print. It's just great.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things about Vellum, and we'll probably talk about it a little bit more as the month goes on. But I mean, it's one of those things that I use all the time. And if I ever have a problem, I just email them and they reply back and help me fix it. Or oftentimes it's like, hey, here's instructions. Here's how to do what you're trying to do. That if I had done a little more search, I probably could have found it. So, but it's invaluable to me. I mean, it's one of those things that, like, if you had to choose, what you had to give up, I would definitely be keeping Vellum. And that's the thing, like with the industry sponsors, we want to ask people if they want to help sponsor the podcast, but we only want people that are companies that we actually work with and love. So Jamie and I both use it and really are happy with it.
We are. So you can download Vellum for free, build, style, and preview your book, and then you purchase when you're ready to publish. And you can do that at tryvellum.com/wish.
Yeah. So you can try it out, give it a test run, see how you like it. Yeah. Yeah.
So to speak.
Yeah. So thanks to Vellum for sponsoring the podcast this month. And I think we should get on with the interview with Jamie Davis.
I think we should too.
All right. Here's Jamie. Well, today we're excited to have a returning guest, Jamie Davis. Hi, Jamie. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thanks for having me back.
You're welcome. And we are so glad you're back. And interestingly enough, the first time we interviewed you, I was at my mother's, and I am at my mother's today. So Something about being at my mother's brings Jamie Davis to the table. So
Well, just another Jamie in the house, right?
that's
I
right.
know.
That's right.
I feel left out when we do these interviews, but oh well. So here, let me read your bio and then we'll get into the questions. Jamie Davis is a nurse, retired paramedic, and author. He loves everything fantasy and sci-fi, especially the places where stories intersect with his love of medicine or gaming. Jamie lives in a home in the woods in Maryland with his wife, 3 kids, and a dog. He writes urban and contemporary paranormal fantasy stories, as well as lit RPG and sci-fi space westerns, among other things. So he's a very busy person.
Yes. You do a lot.
I do. And I don't want to tell people to write different genres, but I go where my muse takes me. And so far it seems to have worked okay. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, give us a quick update of what's been happening to you since you were last on the podcast in September of 2020.
Yeah, it's funny. That was like right in the midst of the pandemic. So I think I have to say the first thing that I did since I've seen you is I survived the pandemic.
I was going to say,
and I don't just mean that like physically. I mean, I actually had like ups and downs in my business from the pandemic. And I stopped writing for a little bit in there and had to really, really refine my focus and where I was writing and how I was writing and when I was writing in the day, and all those things changed a couple of times in there. So I know I'm not the only author that went through that. So I think it's important to mention that, the pandemic affected all of us on a professional level as well as a personal level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I just finished book number 50 that I've written.
Oh my
Congratulations.
gosh.
And I'm happy about that. And I want to just say that it's just a number. Celebrate all of your books finished, whether it's book number 1, book number 3, or book number 50.
Yeah.
They are all worth celebrating, and
Absolutely.
they're all accomplishments. And I write as fast as I can write, and there are people who write way faster than I do, and I don't know how they do it. So, we all have our point where we have to just kind of settle in.
Yeah. And how long have you been publishing books though?
Since late 2014.
Okay. So you've been at this a while, but that's still a good amount of back catalog for readers to dive in. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And that's, I think, something for writers to aspire to is, building that back catalog, because every book becomes part of your back catalog. Every book you finish becomes another opportunity for readers to find you, and another opportunity for readers to fall in love with your writing. And I think that, that every book is just another avenue for coming into your universe.
That's great. I love that.
So
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, do your different genres intersect in any way?
It's funny you say that. I just like a month ago, I had a beta reader that I sent a story out to, and they just sent back, and the first thing they said was, "It's just another great Jamie Davis book."
Oh, that's nice though.
Yeah.
And I think that, even though I write space westerns, I write stories about people and people in situations, and there's similar themes in all my books and similar character focuses in all my books. And I think that comes back to why I am able to successfully write in multiple genres. And it doesn't mean that people read all of my genres, all my readers, but I do have a core group of readers who seem to just like everything that I do when I venture into something different and new. So I have to take that as a win. And, and that's just something I never really thought of it as, because I actually went back and asked them, I'm like, what do you mean by a Jamie Davis book? And they just said, it's just fun. And I come away feeling good. And that's something that I want. I mean, my brand is fun fantasy and sci-fi reads. And I think I've accomplished that. If somebody says they just feel good at the end of reading one of my books, then that's what I want.
That's awesome. And you can use that like in reviews and your copy to let people know, because I think that's what people are looking for. They're looking for a feeling, and like not all books of any type of genre give you the same feeling. So like you can use that to pull in those readers who are looking for that. So
right.
Very smart.
And I think it's a point that really figure out what your author brand is such an important thing to do. And I didn't do it early on, for sure. I mean, I came up with the idea of fun fantasy and sci-fi reads about 3 years ago, like right before the pandemic. So, it's something that, thinking about what your brand is and what it is to be your book might help you define that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's very true. So, what is the most important lesson that you've learned recently? Like, could be from the pandemic or since then, or?
I was thinking about this when you sent me the question, and it really has lately been that don't turn your back on the basics. I've been doing this for a while, and it's coming up on 10 years next year. And I get distracted by the shiny objects. Somebody's got success with TikTok, so maybe I need to do TikTok, or maybe I need to do this or do that.
Right.
But because I only have so many hours in the day, something has to give. So figured out recently, I had stopped really actively building my email list. So when I went back, I'm not gaining more followers than I'm cutting off when I go through to clean out my list. And that is something that I kind of let fall by the wayside because I'd gotten distracted from just some of the basics. And I actually wrote them down. I said that, I started looking at growing my audience and my email list, write my kind of book, and focus on reader engagement and experience. And those are the three things that I think I did really well early on. And those are the things I need to really focus on staying engaged and doing all the time.
Yeah. And especially at a time like this where it's pretty unsure what's happening. I think all the marketing sort of things nothing's changed drastically. And, I think when things feel stagnant, that's when we need to look at the basics too. I mean, we should always focus on it, but if you don't know what to do, go back to that.
That is so true.
Yeah. So I think that's true. Plus with AI and everything, and I'm not terrified of AI or anything, but I do believe that figuring out what your readers want and giving that to your readers and connecting with them is what is going to set us apart from the machines. So I think
let me tell you a funny AI story, because it happened just today before this call. A group of authors and I are writing in a shared universe right now. And we decided to, as a fun thing, to try to write some reviews as dead authors. And so I was like, I was thinking about how I was going to do it. And I was like, this is what AI is for.
Yeah.
And so I put in the details of one of my friends' books and their characters in a brief prompt into ChatGPT and said, written in the style of William Shakespeare. And it kicked out the most on-target, hilarious review of their book written by William Shakespeare. It had forsooths and thee and thous. And, I mean, it was just spot on perfect. And
that's great.
That's exactly what we can use AI for, and be comfortable as authors using those tools to do fun things with our books.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's
agree.
So creative too. So much fun too.
So you said that you had during the pandemic, you had to kind of redefine and look at things. Has your business model changed recently?
It has, and I know we're going to talk more about this later on, but it's really been about really diversifying how I generate income as an author. And for me, that's not going out and starting a course or teaching something. And I'm not putting down anybody who does that. There are a lot of great authors out there who are able to pass along their knowledge in a way and should be paid for that service that they provide. But for me, it's about figuring out ways to meet new readers and meet new audiences in different places and ways. And so I've branched into Kickstarter, which we're going to talk about a little later on. I sell direct on my website for some of my products and some of my books. And all my audiobooks are direct on my website. So there's that method. And then connecting with readers in like subscription models. That's something that I'm branching into after the Kickstarter. That'll be my fall project.
Right.
Is to develop a subscription for the fans that want that extra, that extra something from me. This is a way to reach and give them that opportunity.
Right. And you're actually doing that now. You're on vacation and you're on your way home. You're going to stop and have a reader meetup. With you.
And I'm excited about this. So the reader and his girlfriend that I'm meeting with, they're both really big fans of mine. And he's actually an admin in one of the admins in my reader group on Facebook. So he helps moderate the group for me and stuff and puts posts in there when he's reading different things. And that's great. And I really appreciate his help. He's also the person who's bought the biggest ticket item on my last Kickstarter.
Wow.
And I'm like, if someone's going to spend $500 on me, and I'm 2 hours away from them when I'm on vacation, maybe I can stop and meet them for lunch. And, he was so excited that he's surprising his girlfriend. She doesn't know that they're meeting me for lunch.
Wow.
And my wife and my daughter and her wife are going to be with me. So we're all going to just kind of sit down and have a group lunch at the Cracker Barrel off of 95 on the way home. And I'm so looking forward to having the opportunity to meet them.
Yeah.
And in some small way, make their day, which I don't quite understand, but that's okay. I guess I'm a little too humble in that respect. But I think that there are ways that we can reach our readers in different ways. And, as a male, it's easier for me to meet people in public in places like that. I acknowledge that. But I think there are ways that any author can set up an opportunity to meet up with their readers, even if it's on Zoom. I know Martha Carr has regular monthly pizza parties on Zoom that she holds. And what a great idea, right? So there are ways to do it without actually meeting in person. There are ways to do it safely. But engaging with our readers is something we can all improve upon.
Yeah. And that's going back to the AI thing, this is going to be more important, maybe not necessarily meeting up in person with your readers, but like letting them know that there's a real person behind the books. And that's one way to do it, is to meet them in person or to have a Zoom call or something like that. Or, I can't think of anything else right now. I was going to mention Zoom for people who are less interested in like spending 2 or 3 hours with somebody that they is essentially a stranger, but they know you, but it's kind of like a interesting situation. But I'm sure there's other ways you could connect where you're like emphasizing that you're a person and in real life,
Well, even upping your email game. Is a way to do that. If you're not comfortable meeting face to face in a Zoom call, I think you can definitely do it. Even through your emails or the way you post on social media places. There are different ways to let more of your authentic self show through that will connect better with readers.
That's great.
Yeah, very true. Well, we also like to talk about what we've learned. And one of our questions is always, what mistakes have you made? So we wanted to know how you view mistakes and how do you recover when things go wrong?
It's interesting because I've been in business off and on different ways through most of my adult life. And some of the best early advice I got for business in general was to fail forward. It's that idea of you got to get yourself back up, but fall forward, fail forward. And in the sense that your failures are going to happen, it's how you learn from those failures. It's how you take what caused that failure and what can you do to either make it not happen again, or when it happens again, that you benefit from it. And I think that there are opportunities to do that. I wrote some things down because I wanted to make sure I said this. I have 50 books. Are all of them amazing, best-selling ventures into literary? No, they're not. I have 2 series that no matter what I do, I can't get them to sell. One of them has a lot of critical acclaim. In other words, the reviews are great, but it just for whatever reason, I can't get new readers to read them. I can get my existing readers, some of them, to read the books, and they love them when they get to them. There's another one that's just a stinker. I love it. I love the characters. I thought it was going to be a hit. It misses. I know it misses now on some of the market stuff for the genre. And it's just a stinker. And so, I think if it's your first series, that's going to be hard for an author.
Yeah.
For me, it was like my 3rd series. And so it was hard because I thought, I can write gold, and then I wrote this 3rd series and it just didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And it was hard at the time to really understand why. And now I just write it off. It is not my best work. I need to acknowledge that. I need to figure out what I did wrong and fail forward and write the next series and make it better and make that Jamie Davis Experience book more of what is authentic for me.
Right. Yeah. This makes me think of, I think it was Deanna Roy we were talking to, and she talked about how some of her books are for cold audiences and some of her books are for warm audiences. And I was like, that's a new way to think about that, because like if we concentrate on the ones that we know will draw in the readers to pull them in, then we can focus, our marketing and stuff on those books. And then once they're in, we can say, and I also have these, instead of trying to make all of our books entry points to our world. Some of them are just do better jobs at that than others.
Yeah.
I love that idea of cold and warm books. That is such a really novel way to think about it. And it is true about that one series. If I get my existing readers to go over and try that series out, I get very positive responses back from my existing readers. But for a new reader cold to me, they just don't seem to go beyond book 1. So interesting.
And we all have books like that are like, that's for the fans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the best and worst advice you've ever been given?
Oh, this I wrote down because I got it.
Hope I didn't give it to you.
The best advice I've ever received, and I got it from Craig Martell from over at 20 Books. And that is, the best advice is for an author for me to climb my mountain and not somebody else's mountain.
Yeah.
That we all have our own challenges and our own struggles and our own obstacles that we throw in our own way. And it's for me to figure out how to get to what my best goal is, my best self is, whether that's professionally or personally or whatever. I like I said earlier, there are people who write slower than me and have wonderful success. Jamie, you have great series of books out there that my wife loves and tons of people love. And
Thank you.
It is you've done it differently, and I shouldn't try to write your books and you shouldn't try to write my books. And so, figure out what success is for you and then go ahead and move forward, on that path. That was the best advice I received. And I think it holds true because it's something that, that mountain will change over time. And they focused on what it is for you to make it special. The worst advice, and this is very specific, but I had somebody convince me to try to do more of a traditional PR approach to writing. And, do the blog tour and, write a press release and send it out. And there are people out there who, like, I hired somebody to do it and they did all the things that they said they were going to do for me. So I don't want to say like they didn't do their job, because there are people out there who work very hard at this and she did her job 100%. It just flopped. It wasn't what I needed to connect with readers. And I think they're, really think long and hard about, spending that money when you might be better off spending that towards teaching yourself how to make your Facebook ads more profitable or something like that. because that was just that was a fail forward for me. I tried it. And that's sometimes you're going to spend money on stuff that's not going to work. And this is one of those situations for me where, the traditional PR route just didn't work for me.
Yeah. And so now you can kind of mark that off the list. And later, if you want to circle back, you can, but you've tried it. So that makes sense. Yeah. So let's talk about your Kickstarter. So you have tell us about it. It's coming up soon. When this episode goes out, it'll be launching pretty shortly after that.
Yeah, just about a month after this episode goes live, on July 11th, 2023, the Kickstarter will launch. It's a brand new series. That's a side series in one of my existing universes. Right. So that's kind of fun. So people that are existing readers, I think it's going to be a treat for them. I've got a couple of nice Easter eggs thrown in there for my existing readers. It's the story of, it's kind of, for those of us of a certain age, it's Mr. Mom and Uncle Buck meets Supernatural.
Oh my gosh.
I love that.
I do too.
It is the series I was born to write. I was Mr. Mom for 18 years, raised my kids while my wife worked very hard at her corporate job. And I've done all the things. I've made all the mistakes. I've been that awkward guy hanging out with everybody else's wife. It is
the PTA meetings and stuff.
The PTA meetings and stuff. So this is a series that's about an uncle who gets custody of his niece and nephew after their parents die. And he finds out they're half fae. And he gets indoctrinated into the magical world immediately. And there's a sister-in-law who he has a sordid history with that wanted to be guardian and isn't the guardian. And she's, of course, full fae. And so they will have a long, slow burn romance over the course of the series where they just never quite get together.
Nice. Well, this isn't your first Kickstarter, right? You've done another one.
No, I did another one. This was on the first Kickstarter I did was 3 omnibus hardcover editions for my existing series. So there are 9 books in that series. So I bundled them 3 books into an omnibus hardcover. And so there were 3 of them. 3 times 3 is 9. Yeah, that works. And it really went very well. I was very surprised that it did as well as it did. I was hoping to make, maybe hit like $2,000. I made almost $7,000 on it.
Wow.
On the Kickstarter. People were happy to spend the money. It was $75 a book, including shipping in the US to get them. So if you wanted all 3, it was $150 or no. $225. I can't do math. That's why I'm an author.
I was going to say, I don't math. I just nodded my head. Yeah, me too. Right.
So, and it went really well. It also was something that taught me to really think hard about what other things people might want if they didn't want the hardcovers. Were there other things that so I had a logo pin, enamel pin made up. I had some side things. I wrote some extra short stories for people that had read the books but wanted to participate and contribute, but wanted something new along with their contribution. So I wrote some additional short stories. And that was something that was fun for me to revisit some side characters and some situations from the original series. And so that went really well. And that gave me the impetus to say, this is a way that I can reach people in a different way. And pre-launch a series. So that's what I'm doing with the upcoming Kickstarter is I'm pre-launching that series on Kickstarter 6 months before it goes live on any other store.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So that was going to be my next question was like, how does that fit into, like you said, you're also thinking about doing subscriptions. So like, are you going to pre-launch, then launch wide, and then how does it all fit together?
I'm going to pre-launch on Kickstarter, and they will have the ebooks in hand by early September, and they'll have the print books in hand by the end of September, beginning of October. The books are written. I'm writing book 3 now, so the books will be written before the series starts. The audiobooks are already started, so the audiobooks will be part of the Kickstarter too. I'm doing the whole package. And the opportunity here is to reach those core readers that really want things early, that want to get their hands on these books before anybody else gets them, and they can sit there and say, hey, I read these before anybody else got them. And then what the next step will be, I'm going to launch a subscription in the fall that will start giving people access to my draft chapters as I write them over time. And then they'll also get the finished books at the end as they're put out. That's the plan for that. I still haven't fleshed it out fully, but it's going to be at least on a very basic level, at least that for the initial opportunities.
Right.
And then this series will then start launching in January 2024. 2 weeks before each book launches, I'll make it available for that limited time on my website, direct to my readers, via my email list.
So like if they didn't pick it up at Kickstarter and they weren't on the subscription, then they can get it then.
They can get it
great.
then. And I can still make that additional money on direct sales from my core readers who didn't want to do Kickstarter. It's really about meeting people where they are. Some people are all right, don't want to learn, don't want to sign into a new platform. And then, they're okay buying direct from me, but they don't like PayPal, so they're not going to do it this time.
Right.
And so then, but they'll buy from Amazon. Okay, well, they'll wait 2 more weeks. And then I'll pull it off my store and put it on Amazon in KU and do the full launch where a book comes out a month for 3 months.
Right.
And then I'll do the next Kickstarter is already going to be scheduled for the following July, where I will do the next 3 books in that series and wrap up that series. And it follows the kids as they grow up through school. So book 1 is the oldest child is 4, then she's in 1st grade, then she's in 4th grade, and she'll be in middle school, then 2 books in high school and graduation and that whole nonsense. So it's really it's going to be fun to kind of follow them. And so I'm hoping the plan is that the next Kickstarter, people will be really primed to have the opportunity to get in early on the next Kickstarter.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Well, are you creating extra content for this Kickstarter, or is it just
there'll be so the Kickstarter versions of the paperbacks will have, each of them will have a short story in them.
Oh, okay.
So, and I will pull those out when the books go on Amazon. So the only people who will get those short stories as part of those paperbacks will be or the ebooks too, obviously. But they will have the short stories as part of their content package.
Okay.
And then those short stories may become available later on, but they won't be ever bundled as part of this package again.
That's great.
So your Kickstarter editions will be special in that they'll never probably have that opportunity to get that together again. They may be able to buy it later in some other format, but to get it packaged together like that.
Right. Yeah.
I love that. I think that's a very smart idea.
Yeah. And I enjoy the short stories for me. And I think I know a lot of romance authors do this, where they have the epilogue chapters or the side stories, what happens after the fact.
Right.
These are opportunities, especially because years pass between each of these 3 books. It'll be an opportunity for me to write a little bit about what happened in between.
Right.
Share that with the readers.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I have one other question about Kickstarter. I don't know if Jamie's got any more, but I was thinking, since you were one of the early adopters for authors, kind of in our indie world using Kickstarter, and now you're doing your second one. So do you have anything that you're not doing that you did? Has your way of thinking about it changed?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm making notes for myself.
I think the big thing that changed was that I used it initially for an existing series, because I felt like it was I had nothing to lose. I already had the audiobooks done. Everything was there. I just kind of wrote a couple more short stories and made it additional content. This is really a different venture in that I'm launching something brand new, and it told me there was a possibility that would be something that I could make work. And I have readers that are already excited about it just from the little teasers I've put out there. And just a tip, because the first 2 books are already written and the first audiobook's done, I already shared it with my beta readers said, here's book 1. Let me know what you think. And then I put these teaser posts up there and they all commented, oh my God, you're going to love this series. I already got a sneak peek. And so it's already got a little bit of buzz written up, building about it because of, and again, it's that you got to be willing to give some things away for free. As a business and as an author, you have to be able to give that teaser out there. And when you're doing free books, giving away the first book to a few readers that are going to be engaged with the process. And I have no doubt that these people are going to go in and join the Kickstarter, even though they've already gotten book 1. Because I think they're those types of fans.
Because they love your books and they want all the special stuff they can get.
Yeah. And I think it's just, one of the things I've been doing is paying attention to other Kickstarters, either in publishing, but also in other things that have to do with fantasy and sci-fi. So like the gaming Kickstarters and things like that. Just looking and seeing what they're doing, what kind of extra, where are their reward tiers? I think that's something that everybody can do. It doesn't take long to do a little research on your Kickstarter app on your phone while you're, while you're waiting in the doctor's office or, waiting to pick the kids up at school or whatever it might be. Take some time to look at some other Kickstarters and figure out what they're doing that might make sense to say, oh, wow, I could do something similar to that in my reward tiers. And that would be something that's a little different.
Yeah. And something I didn't know is like, you can create a tier and launch your thing. And then if nobody signs up for that tier, you can archive that and change it and create a new one. Like if somebody purchases that tier, you could still archive it, but you'll still have to fulfill to them.
Right.
But like if nobody's purchased it, you can just delete it basically and try something else. So I didn't realize that when I started.
And I think that's especially if you're doing a longer Kickstarter, you can really learn from the early adopters what works and what doesn't work, and make it a bonus thing. Like, hey, we've added new tiers, for those readers that already joined or were looking at it. They'll come back and reread it and look at it again, give it a fresh look. So I think that's a great idea. Don't forget to do that. That's for sure. Yeah.
And you said you're doing yours for 21 days, right?
21 days. I did the first one for 17. And I was thinking I'm going to do it for 17. And then I said, no, I'm going to try 21 days, full 3 weeks. One of the things I did in the first one that worked really well was I wrote most of my content ahead of time. And I'm going to tell you to do something that is counterintuitive to a lot of us in the author business. I emailed my readers every single day during the Kickstarter.
Okay.
And I cringed and thought, this is it. I'm going to cut my list in half. Watch this. They're going to leave in droves. Right. I think over the total Kickstarter, I lost 10 unsubscribes.
Wow.
Nice.
So now I warned them ahead of time.
Yeah. I think if you tell them ahead of time, they're a lot more receptive than you think they will be.
I did that. I said, hey, I'm going to listen, my Kickstarter is going to start and I'm going to put out there a lot of different things about why this Kickstarter is important to me. And if you just want to delete those emails as soon as they pop up, go ahead. And I'll go back to my every 2 weeks email newsletter after the Kickstarter's done. But I wanted to give you a heads up that you're going to get a lot of emails from me.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think all you have to do is just tell them. And that's what I did. So I'm going to pre-write a lot of the content. And so that I'll have, I can basically just cut and paste out of a file to create my next newsletter the morning of or the night before, set it to schedule and go. And then a lot of them write themselves. Honestly, if you're afraid of where you're going to come up with the content, a lot of them write themselves. At least 4 of my emails were, oh my gosh, we're almost to the next funding level. I can't believe we got there this fast.
Right.
If you haven't jumped in yet, now's your chance. And those kind of emails were kind of fun for me to write. I was excited about it.
Yeah.
So it made it a lot easier. It was some of them the easiest emails I've ever written. So
yeah. And you've already done all the hard work with creating the page. So you can just pull something from the page and say, hey, this is what, I'm excited to share with you this today or this week or whatever.
Introduce each of your characters separately in a separate email.
Yeah.
There's lots of different ways you can do it. And like you said, Sarah, to do that, pull the content directly from your page, because don't assume that everybody's read your whole Kickstarter page. Scroll all the way to the bottom and pull that stuff out of there where, hey, today we're going to talk about the digital reward tiers and, or the physical reward tiers, or why are you going to like these enamel pens, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I think that's true, because long emails or blog posts. I was just thinking the other day, I really hate them. I hate them. I don't read them. I skim them because I don't like I'd rather, and then a lot of times if I get an email, I'll go to my computer because it seems like less. And it probably is. I am so overwhelmed by this big chunk of text that I don't know. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
There's a lesson there though, Jamie. A lot of people are overwhelmed by big blocks of text. So make sure you use a lot of white space when you write your emails. Make sure you're putting a lot of returns in there to make sure there's plenty of space between the paragraphs, because some of that makes it, you can skim a paragraph with 2 or 3 sentences and get the gist of what it says very easily. But if it's a big block of text, you'll get lost halfway through.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Well, you talked about selling your books on your website, but you have a shop on your website and you sell merchandise, correct?
Yes. And
tell us, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I use, I have a WordPress site. And I use the plugin for WooCommerce. And so I basically am running the store myself, and I collect payments direct through using PayPal. I use Printful to fulfill. That's another plugin that works with WooCommerce. And Printful.com is where the people I use to print and create all the things that I'll opt to sell. And interestingly enough, I was one of those things where my daughter-in-law convinced me to do it. And I was like, okay, she was helping me with my website and some of my design stuff. And she just put it up there, and I just started announcing it. And so I always have a link at the bottom of all my newsletters to a product on my page. And I try to change it up every now and then, but sometimes I get lazy and it stays the same product. But invariably, when I send my newsletters out, I sell 1 or 2. A t-shirt or a baseball cap or a mug, or right now I've got audiobook bundles you can only get from me. So nowhere else can you get the entire 9-book series of Extreme Medical Services than on my website in audiobook. So it's, and it's cheaper than a credit. But I figure it's a great way to get people to come use my store, and those books, are there. All my audiobooks are available on my website, so I try to do it that way. And so I don't pimp it, but I always put it at the bottom of my emails to say, hey, here's a product for you that's on sale this month, or here's a special or something.
Right. Can you tell us why you decided to do WooCommerce instead of Shopify?
I don't think Shopify was really on my radar when I first did this. It was probably almost a year and a half ago. And I know Shopify for the author brands, at least, has been something that's been relatively. I know Joanna Penn's just started talking about it like a year ago.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really on my radar. And I've always been a person who's been more of a DIY kind of person regarding my website.
Right.
So I'm more comfortable using plugins and setting things up for myself and handling things from a business sense on my own. But I think Shopify is a great option for people that want kind of a more of a plug and play opportunity for their books and their content and their other stuff that they want to sell.
Yeah. No, I was glad we were going to talk to you and touch on this, because Shopify is great. And I mean, I'm working on a store for myself, but the WooCommerce, it's a plugin, right? So there's is there a cost to it?
No.
Yeah. So you can just use that and set it up. You have to set it up yourself and manage it.
Right. But I mean, it's like any other plugin. You have to make sure it stays updated. Every now and then the WooCommerce will say the update will come back and say, you must now update your database. So you have to do that too. But I'm on my website every couple of days at the minimum. So I'm always, if it's not something you're prepared to stay on top of, I would definitely do something a little different, and maybe do something that's a little more, let somebody else handle the back end.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're trying to save money, that's a great way to do it, because Shopify has a monthly fee or an annual fee, that you have to pay, and a lot of people that it might be better to start on WooCommerce and see if there's interest, and then maybe move to Shopify later if you want to be more elaborate. But then you're trying it and finding out without spending a ton of money. So I think that's a great option.
And WooCommerce has premium plugins that you can get. I don't use them, but they're there, like they can handle shipping for you and things like that. But first of all, most of my things are either digital products or Printful will fulfill them for you. So you don't have to worry about that end of things. Really, I don't think there's anything that you can do elsewhere that you can't do with WooCommerce out of the box with the free version.
That's great.
It's you can do coupons, you can do sales, you can do all kinds of things. Group discounts or things like that. You really have a lot of control.
Yeah. Are you using BookFunnel for your digital fulfillment?
Yes.
Yeah. Can't go wrong with BookFunnel.
Can't go wrong with Damon. God bless that man. I think I met him. What was it, Jamie? 2016 when he was at
2016
Artist Summit, and I first heard about BookFunnel there, and I've never looked back. Once it was available, I watched him. He continues to innovate. Somebody puts a bug in his ear about something, he figures out how to make it work.
Yeah, he had just started it. Before the Smart Artist Summit, because people were talking about it. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, because I hadn't put a book out yet. And when they explained what it does and why he did it, so you weren't, the author wasn't having to tell people how to sideload things onto their readers. I was like, oh, now I get it, because that would be a nightmare.
I feel like we're the grandparent authors sitting there going, remember when you had to email the reader the file and then you had to explain to them how to put it on their Kindle? Before BookFunnel.
Back in the dark ages. So let's see. There was something else I was going to ask you about your store. One thing that people are always curious about is taxes, and getting started, like sales tax and all that. What advice would you have for people who are thinking about this, but they're like, I don't know?
Contact a tax professional.
Perfect.
Because I don't want to give any kind of things that might sound like advice. So I will say, talk to your own accountant. If you're in business, you should have an accountant, and contact them and explain to them what you're trying to do and find out from them what the requirements are for your state, your jurisdiction, or your country. Everybody's got different thresholds for how much you need to sell in a year to have to pay that state tax. And then, I just know in the state of Maryland, anybody that lives in Maryland, I have to automatically collect sales tax for, and everybody else, I have to watch the numbers. Basically.
Right.
So that's kind of where I fall.
Yeah. So I discovered that it wasn't as bad as I thought. Like, it was complicated. Did you feel the same way?
I feel the same way, but I don't want to give bad advice. So I will just say, talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about, because what I've learned and what I know may not be, because I have somebody that handles all that stuff for me. So I don't want to give you bad advice.
Yeah. Good. So, well, that is great. Jamie, you got any more questions about the store?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I just think I think you're just doing amazing things. I'm so happy for you. And I mean, I knew you back in the day. So I love it. So if you were starting over today, what would you do differently, Jamie?
Wow. If I were starting over today, think I'd trust myself better. I kind of was very doubtful of what my opportunities were in this business early on, and didn't really trust in who I was as a storyteller. And maybe that's something I had to travel through anyway to get to where I am. But I wish I could have trusted, my voice a little bit more. Would have been more important to me. And part of what's been a joy of that process has been all the people I've met along the way. You too, from that very first opportunity where I got together with authors for the first time, and moved forward from there. The 20 Books Conference is coming up. I'm one of the assistant directors of that conference, and I hope people will come to that. It's just any opportunity you have to meet with other authors, whether they're indie or trad or hybrid. Do it, take that opportunity, because we really bond well together, and we are isolated too often.
And just remember, everybody's just as nervous as you are. So,
True.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And you won't regret it. I think that just meeting with other authors in person is always a good thing. So, well, tell people where they can find about you and your books and your Kickstarter.
Okay. Well, you can find me and my books at jamiedavisbooks.com, JAMIE Davisbooks.com. So Jamie and I spell our names a little differently, but
because my mom was on drugs.
And you can also get to my Kickstarter at jamiedavisbooks.com/Kickstarter. That'll always point to my most recent Kickstarter. So,
all right, perfect. That's great. Yeah,
perfect. Well, thank you for coming back and talking to us again, and just sharing so much. We've had a great time, and I think it'll be really helpful for everyone. I think it'll be really good.
It will be.
Yeah. So glad
you
could be here.
Reach out to me if somebody. I'm always open to talking to authors. I am a very outgoing and extroverted person, unlike many authors out there. So if you have a question and I can answer it quickly, I will happily shoot you an email back and give you an answer, or try to point you in the right direction.
That's awesome. And it's very helpful. So that's awesome. So thanks for listening today. You can find all the links at wishiknowthempodcast.com. And don't forget our sponsor, Vellum. It's at tryvellum.com/wish. And thanks to Alexa Larberg for editing and producing the podcast, and to Adriel Wiggins for doing the admin. We'll see everybody next week.
Bye.
Bye.
I don't care.